Okay, great. So, Angela, thanks for taking the time. This is we've been doing this from our team's been doing an In the Loop podcast, and really, nothing's out of bounds. We did one on general business communication. We did one on sports recently, and this one, since we're at this Texas A&M Instrument and Automation Symposium, I thought it'd be great to do one when we're here and see what happens.
Okay.
So. And this is part of the Mary Kay O'Connor Process Safety Center Symposium, right? So I wanted to ask you, what's your history with this symposium?
So I met Sam Manan at a AICHE conference in the spring before the very first symposium. And
Okay.
he handed me a flyer and said,
Before
would
the first one that
before the
you-
very first symposium that they were having as the center.
Okay.
Sam had only been here a short time with the center setting it up, and they had decided to have this conference, and he went to AICHE and was handing out flyers to everybody he thought was a good speaker, asking them to come do a talk at the fall symposium.
And that was really the MKO symposium, because at that point,
Correct.
the automation symposium was separate?
Separate. So I've been associated with the Instrumentation and Automation Symposium since January 1996.
Okay.
I did environmental research and development prior to going to work for Triconics in the summer of '95.
Okay.
And so the very first symposium that I could attend was in January of '96, and I've been attending ever since then. So
And
29 years.
At that point, were you going to two of them? The MKO
Yes.
process safety, and then also the instrument and automation, and then also AKI, and then, I don't know how many. I don't know how many were on your calendar at that point.
Yeah, so I started off with the Instrumentation and Automation Symposium, and then started going to the AICHE conferences, and at that time, Loss Prevention, the Process Plant Safety Symposium, and the CCPS Symposium were three separate symposiums.
Okay.
And so I would go to all three of those, and then the last one of the season would be the Process Safety Center Symposium, which happens this week because of the history of Mary Kay O'Connor. That accident happened October 23rd, 1989.
Yeah.
So tomorrow is the anniversary.
Yeah. Okay. And currently, you serve as the president of the Instrument Automation Steering Committee.
I'm
Is that what we call
co-chair,
it? Co-chair with
of the
okay.
planning committee.
Yes. Okay.
And I've been doing that now for, I think, 4 years. But I've been heavily involved in the Instrumentation and Automation Symposium Planning Committee since 1999, I think, is when I joined as a committee member.
Okay.
So
And
it's a
when
long
you
time.
well, in your words, what's the difference in I know there are differences, but from a process safety versus a functional safety, how do you generally, because at this conference we have a pretty clear track that is focused on process safety, and then we have our instrument automation where a lot of times it's functional safety. So how do you sort of describe those two if you had to?
Yeah, so process safety is, looking at what could happen, and a lot of what goes on at the Process Safety Center is some fundamental academic, theoretical, how do we better analyze our consequences and understand them, how do we do better math to predict them, how do we assess things more. Where I feel like the Instrumentation and Automation Symposium, we say, yes, we know we have all those problems, but here are solutions that we're implementing today to try to make those problems palatable, acceptable, and then we're learning from the Process Safety Center what new things we need to be afraid of.
Okay.
And then we're coming back
How do
here and
we
saying,
solve
how do we
those?
solve those?
Okay.
So, they started talking about AI multiple years ago at the Process Safety Center. And then this year, we've brought in a lot more AI topics because now we're going from the theory of what we should fear
Yeah.
to the reality of how do we take care of those problems.
Okay. Yeah, and when I come to this, because I have an instrument and controls background, my focus is on the functional safety track. Well, and to be honest, that's really more generically instrument automation. It just happens to have a lot of safety content. But imagine for yourself, you split some of your time between some of the process safety discussions and some of the instrument automation discussions.
Yes.
Is that how you do it?
Well, my background, I have a PhD in chemical engineering, so I'm very interested in the chemistry and physics of how things can go wrong. But understanding how things can go wrong is an intellectual thing. What we do at the Instrumentation and Automation Symposium is we show how we address those problems. So I like the practical applications, and I would say that's probably one of the biggest compliments that people that I work with tell me is that, well, you're very practical about these things. And it's
yeah.
like, yeah, I can theoretically slap you around, but it's not going to do us any good. What we need to do is have practical means that are cost effective, that when implemented, do reduce the risk. Does it make things perfect? No. There's many, many graduate students here who can tell us all the things that can go wrong and all the myriad of ways that it can happen. But we can't let that fear stop us from doing what we need to do to try to be better today.
Okay, yeah. We engaged with MKO. I have a daughter who's going to school at A&M, and
Okay.
I was registering her freshman year, and there's a point in that process, it's like a 2 or 3 day process. There's a point where they kick the parents out, and they're like, okay, we need a little bit of time. We're going through some student-only things. And so there I was, on campus 20 years after my graduation, because I'm class of 2001, and I don't even have my ring on right now, which is a big Aggie thing. It's in my pocket here. I got to find it. Hold on. That wasn't part
You're
of the
not
plan.
wearing your ring? What is wrong with you, man?
There we go.
Okay,
Got it.
roll tide to your ring. There we go.
But I was like, oh, what am I going to do with myself? Let me walk around. And then I thought, well, I've got 20 years in the industry now. Really, I should have some more engagement with university. We had already been to the symposium a few times, but then I went to the MKO Center. I was like, I went and actually Edison was brand new there. Edison, who's running this symposium now, and I said, hey, I think we want to be involved. What's the opportunity to get involved? And then as a company, we did for a few years. We were a part of the MKO Center. But we are so heavy on the functional safety side that a lot of times the message we were trying to get over, it wasn't exactly well suited for the
Right.
students that were there. And I just thought, okay, we're going to continue obviously our partnership with or our involvement in the symposium and the activities, but truly the MKO part of it isn't the best fit for
Right.
our organization.
No, I can understand that. I love talking to the graduate students about their research.
Okay.
Yeah. It speaks to me. But from a practical business standpoint, I can understand why those more theoretical academic discussions don't speak to our business's bottom lines as much as functional safety does.
Right. I mean, I guess they certainly could in the right environments. There's a lot of value in all those discussions. I'm not debating that, but
Right.
we lean into our skill sets, obviously, right? And
Right.
so our skill sets are a little bit less on the research and more on the action and the practical
Right.
solutions.
Right.
So you generally identify when prompted with Alabama. But
Oh yeah.
that is
You
not.
don't have to prompt me.
But that's not where you started. So you had a Mississippi State bachelor's?
So I actually go all the way back to I have an associate's degree
Okay.
from Hines Community College.
Okay.
Then went to Mississippi State for 2 years and got my bachelor's. Then I went to Clemson for 2 years and got my master's. And then I went to the University of Alabama and got my PhD.
Now I did a little LinkedIn sleuthing, and you spent like 6 years in Alabama, is that right?
It took me 6 years to graduate, but I wasn't there for 6 years.
Was that remote, or was that like commuting, or how did that work?
I was at the University of Alabama as a full-time student for 2 years. And then, sometimes life happens and you find that you need like real money to fix life really happening. So I left without finishing. I didn't have my research. And the professors at University of Alabama said, okay, well, you're just going to be an ABD. And I was like, ABD, that's all but dissertation. So instead of a PhD, you'll be an ABD. And I'm like, no, I'm going to finish. And they're like, no one ever does. But I worked for a couple of years, got myself out of the bind that I was in, and then I took a position for a year at Mississippi State University, got my research done, left the university again, went back out into industry, and it took me 2 years of vacations and weekends to finish the dissertation.
Okay.
So that's why it was a total of 6 years, but I was only in college at Alabama for 2.
Okay. And that's way before the days of web meetings and video calls and stuff like that, right?
No, there was no Zoom. There was no GoToMeeting. There was no Microsoft Teams. There wasn't even Skype.
What?
I mean, when I did my literature review for my dissertation, I had to go to the librarian, and she used a special code and a computer, and it cost $1,500 for the keyword search that she did.
Really?
And now you can do that
To
keyword
find-
search in Google AI and find everything that I found then.
That was to find the literature within the library.
Yeah,
And that was a
that was
fee
to find the literature within the industry that was related to my research topic. So it wasn't just looking at what was in the library. It would be the equivalent of going into Google AI that's connected just to the technical journals and saying, okay, I want something that has this keyword, this keyword, and this keyword, and it's spitting out that there's 1,000 citations over the last 50 years on that topic.
Wow. And that was a bill, like a university add-on to your tuition or something, where they said, for what you need, like this is the cost for us to run those searches?
No, I mean, it was really bad because my professor told me to go talk to the librarian about it, but he didn't talk to me about how much it would cost. And when it cost that much, he freaked out.
Okay, so
but it was spent then.
Okay,
There was nothing I
but
could
you
do
didn't
about
have to
it.
incur that. That's
No,
part of the
I
program.
didn't have to incur it, but he was not happy with me. I'm like,
who's that
you just
fee-
told me to go do this.
Who's
You know,
that fee
Mom,
going to?
It was going to the organization at the time that provided the software to do the keyword search.
Wow.
And so that's one of those, that was, when you look at evolution of technologies, a new technology always puts an old technology out of business. Because no one would spend $1,500 doing a
today?
keyword search today. No. You're going to Chat GPT and saying, hey, blank. And
Well,
getting an answer now.
Yeah, and something as simple as entering your time. Like now, we all know that on Fridays or whenever we're going to go to some system. We're going to enter our time for the week. As employees of various companies. And I when I jumped into my career, I went offshore. I was in the office for about 6 months, and we were designing offshore safety system for a Gulf of America facility.
Okay.
And then I went out to commission it. Granted, not having a heck of a lot of experience, but I was part of the team that went out to commission it. And we would have to get our timesheets turned in, and I think we had to call the admin at
Okay.
the office and dictate what our
What it-
time was, right? And now that's
Now I got an app on my phone.
completely unheard of, right?
Now I have an app on my phone. I pull it up and I can pull up the jobs and charge the hours to specific codes. The connectivity we have now is so great.
Yeah,
And of course, you have to have experts on configuring that or it doesn't work, right?
yeah.
So-
Okay, so Alabama, but I think
Roll Tide.
a lot of people sort of identify with their bachelor's university,
Mm-hmm.
and you sort of grew to love the PhD university. So what's the dialogue there?
So the dialogue is, I'm a bulldog. I love Mississippi State University. I grew up rooting for Mississippi State University. But I met my husband at the University of Alabama, and he was only there for 2 years. He got his master's in chemical engineering. But somehow he came out not with red blood, with crimson blood, and was just a huge Alabama fan. So I became an Alabama fan and cheered along with him. And I stayed quiet when we played Mississippi State.
Yeah.
Yelled loudly when he played anybody else. Would get upset when they would lose to Ole Miss, but beat Mississippi State. It was like, no, if you're going to lose to a Mississippi team, lose to Mississippi State and beat the out of Ole Miss. But it never worked out that way.
Okay.
So that's why I'm a big one as him, and then he and I put both of our nieces through college at Alabama. So our nieces are big Alabama fans. So
Okay.
that's what I watch on Saturdays is Alabama football.
Nice. Well, I love the way that colleges become a family tradition. Like it's not, for me, I was the first, my folks did not go to college, so I was the first one in the family and ended up going to A&M, and that's worked well for me, and it's an identity for my kids. Now, they don't have to go there, but it's certainly encouraged, right? And so we'll see how all that shakes out, right? I'm 1 for 1 so far. And,
Very good.
and the other two,
Probably go anywhere but.
I'm working. I'm nibbling on them right now, and we've already gone to a couple games this year, and so it's a good atmosphere. Now,
Yeah, I do enough. Over the years, I've done enough up here that there are people who actually think I have a degree from Texas A&M because
Yeah.
I've been up here all the time.
now,
But I make sure I throw out enough roll tides to straighten that out.
yeah. We all know, those who've worked with you know that comes out quite a bit. But now A&M has this statement. From the outside looking in, you can't understand it, and from the inside looking out, you can't explain it, because there is a certain culture from the inside that we really enjoy. Now, some people take that a little far, and they use the word cult at times or whatever. But and by the way, I'm a Corps of Cadet Aggie too.
Oh, you
so
are
like
in the cult.
I came to tour the university, and the tour guide was in the full getup, the boots and everything, right? He's a senior, and he was polished. And I listened to him for a couple hours while we walked around campus. I was like, well, that sounds like a pretty good deal, so let's just do it. And I did it and loved it. So I'm pretty deep on that. But your experience at the university, any notes from like an A&M perspective? Anything you want to share from your impression of the university?
Not really. I mean, I not from the cult aspect, because I think anybody that's a fan of a football team joins a cult, whether they're cheeseheads or Roll Tide fans or whooping or whatever that phrase that college has. What I would say is that I really love Texas A&M's commitment to the center and the work that we're doing here to improve process safety.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things about this conference that I like, is that we go in our business, we know there are vendor conferences. They're generally tied to a particular software provider, a particular hardware provider, and they are specifically geared to sell for that vendor, which is okay. They're the one hosting it.
Right.
They get that right. And then we have some like AKI, which I feel is a little bit more on the academic side. I like the mix here, where it feels like it's an industry discussion, but it's under the backdrop of the university, so it's less commercial, it's good quality discussion. So I mean, we find this is probably the most relevant, or maybe not relevant, but it's certainly fits with the current industry topics, and it's great for colleague sharing and whatnot. I don't know, like, are there what rivals or what's similar to that in your conference experience?
I would say that there's nothing currently that is similar to the Instrumentation and Automation Symposium. AICHE, through the Global Congress on Process Safety, they have a lot of synergy and parallels to the Process Safety Center Symposium, where it's a good mix of people who are industry talking about how they're applying new methods and approaches to solving and understanding process safety problems, along with the academics of what is the latest model to use for determining whether or not you're going to blow up a building, right? So I think the Process Safety Center and the Global Congress on Process Safety have a lot of overlap. But there's really nothing like the Instrumentation and Automation Symposium, where we're addressing the standards, we're addressing new technologies, we're addressing existing and emerging issues, as well as discussing what are future problems that we know are coming up and that we need to develop strategies for. So there's the things that you can take away today and apply today, and there's things for you to think about so that when you come to next year's conference, you know, maybe that person now has an idea that they can share with us.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know how many scenarios bring together the owner-operators as well as the engineering companies or the system integrators and the vendors quite as seamlessly, I think, as this seems to.
And that's one thing about the Instrumentation and Automation Symposium, is that we really target the stakeholders. Where some organizations are very focused that we want to be 100% users and only focus on user issues, we've deliberately set up the planning committee so that it's balanced between consultants, contractors, vendors, and end users, because we have to have, the end users need the contractors to understand how to implement the systems. The vendors need to innovate their products to meet the challenges that we're identifying as consultants. And so it's the four disciplines working together. And this is the one conference that I attend where it's very deliberate in how we are programming the papers, how we're looking and attracting exhibitors, that we want to always represent all of those areas, because everybody has to work together on a project to get the job done.
Yeah, and here too, we're okay going to traditional topics and continuing to refine them, whereas like at those vendor conferences, I feel like it's all the new stuff, right? Because you've already bought the old stuff.
Yeah.
So we only need to present to you on the next thing.
Next thing.
Yeah, okay. So you're the president or owner of Systech?
Both.
Both. Yes, both.
I am the be-all, end-all.
And
I'm the queen.
So 1999, that's when that started?
I started it in 1999. I was 36.
Okay.
And stupid.
Yeah? Well,
Yeah, because that's the only reason why you'd start a business is because you're too young to be smart enough not to do that.
Well, I was going to ask you, what's the story? How did you make that happen?
I had been working at Triconics for 4 years, and one of the things that I kept hearing as I was trying to sell my services to Triconics customers was that they wanted an independent assessment. They wanted the people who were doing the seal verification to be independent of the product manufacturer. And I had quite a few contacts through the work that I did at Triconics. And I started the business, and some of those clients came over with me and sustained me until I built my own customer base.
Okay. What was your original role at Triconics?
My title was Global Risk Assessment Analyst.
Okay, so it was in the process safety side of
what
things.
I did was quantitative risk assessments, whether it was full-blown quantitative risk assessment or seal verification. I also talked to clients about consequences and did HAZOP and PHA work. So it was really, as you're correctly pointing out, it was more on the process safety side.
Okay. And then, has that been just a smooth trajectory with the growth of the company, or anything interesting along the way, along that journey?
Well, I'd say what was interesting along the way was that I opened up a field services business in the early 2010s to provide technicians to do everything from installation, commissioning, to troubleshooting, to validation, right? When I was in college at Mississippi State, I had taken and dropped electrical engineering systems twice because I was a junior college transfer. I was trying to take 18 to 19 hours a semester of engineering, and electrical engineering systems was not a good class for me as a
Not
chemical
friendly?
engineer. It was not friendly. So the summer term, my last term, I was taking chemical engineering, plant design, and double E systems with the intent that I would graduate in August and go to grad school. So I needed to finish the class. And so before I went to that first class in double E systems, which I'd already taken and dropped twice, so this was my third shot, got to do it now if I want to graduate, I said a prayer. And I was like, Lord, if you will just let me out of this class, I'm not even asking for an A. I can take a B minus. Just let me out of this class. And if you help me get out of this class, I swear, other than occasionally putting in a dimmer switch, hanging a ceiling fan, and maybe doing some low voltage wiring out in the garden, I won't ever have anything to do with electrical engineering again as long as I live. And then in the 2010s, I started actually selling electricians, instrument techs, I&E techs, wire pullers, conduit runners.
But your agreement stated that you personally wouldn't do that.
I wouldn't do that. But God laughed.
Nothing in your arrangement said that you couldn't create a department that did that.
Well, the thing is that, you can ask, but you don't get to set terms. And that was my biggest lesson in business, is that I asked to be allowed to graduate. God set the terms. It's like, yep, you're going to be doing electrical, 100%.
Okay, you see it the other way. You see that he put that on your plate because of the help that you provided. Okay, so what percentage of how does that break down now today between your sort of office consulting crew versus your field crew?
Well, the field crew goes up and down depending on the season of the year. So right now I've got a lot more field people than I do engineers, but typically it's about 50-50.
Okay. Now you also sell software, is that correct?
Yes.
Was that by design?
Yes, we've had SillSolver since 2000. So the first edition of that came out shortly after I started the company.
Oh, really? Because the underlying question to anyone that's running, especially a consulting type business, has to do with funding, right? Overhead is obviously very difficult to deal with.
Overhead's very difficult. So I got some seed money from 3 end users.
Okay. And programming, I mean, you're not a programmer, are you? Or did you get in there and program some of that?
I can program, but I didn't program that. The SillSolver desktop was actually programmed by my mom.
Wow. Okay. A lot of things start as like an Excel concept, and then maybe you build an Access version, and then you try to put it on SQL Server, and you like work it up through that process.
Right. So the first version of SillSolver Desktop was Excel spreadsheets.
Okay.
And then it went into Fox Pro because my mom was a really good Fox Pro programmer. Now it's in the latest cloud programming techniques.
Okay. Yeah. Now, the other thing is managing a staff, not on the field side, but I'm sure it's very similar, but managing a staff, like an office staff of engineering consulting, that's a difficult juggling act. Any particular interesting nuggets there? Anything that's made you be successful with that in terms of how to, because I'm assuming, I mean, one way to do that, of course, is to sort of find opportunities where people can work almost full-time exclusively for a big project or a big client.
Right.
But then we get in a lot of situations where we've got small jobs, hundreds of hours, not thousands of hours, and then you multiple assignments, and you're trying to flange those guys up to where there's no gaps and all of that. So
that's running in the engineering side is very challenging because, as you said, you get the the more specialized the task, the lower the number of hours. And so you're trying to string together a bunch of 40, 80-hour projects to keeping people busy. And the key to that is developing strong relationships with your clients so that they want to keep people busy.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that they
Yeah.
keep feeding you work because they want that resource to be available to them.
Yes. Okay. That makes sense.
But the key to my success is Swiss Army knife employees, right?
What-
You have to have, you hire, sometimes you hire somebody because they have a specific skill that you definitely need for this job. But how sustainable that type of work is, you can't predict it. You can hope it's going to be there, but you can't say for certainty. And so you have to hire people that have the specialty skills but an interest in more general tasks so that you can keep them busy and develop them. So everyone that has come to work for me came to work for me to do something, and then over time their skill base kept growing to where now, okay, it's a PHA, he can go do that. It's an SRS, go do that. It's proof test procedures, go do that.
Okay.
And so you have high technical skills that can be applied in very specific applications or can go to fulfill more general project needs.
Okay. Well, I have some experience in that realm too. With our team, though, we do love the Swiss Army knife concept, but we found that that's not exactly something I can require in everyone that we need. So we kind of have this special set of
Right.
folks that have one or two tricks that are really important tricks, and
Right.
we just work. Our Swiss Army team works really hard
To feed them.
to feed those guys. You have that too, I'm assuming?
Yes, I think everybody has that.
Okay.
And of course, the field services team is completely different because that's like right now, I have a project going on where it's 50 people in the field at one site, and it'll be for 8 weeks, and then all those people will be off the job and off my payroll. So you
Yeah.
have these big spikes of people, and then it decays, and it's big spikes again, and it decays. So the field services business is very much selling resources that you contract when you need them. Where the engineering business, you have to keep those people fed because you've spent money training them to do those tasks that you're talking about. Those specialized tasks are to be able to understand enough in how they're doing their work that they can identify where those specialized tasks are and feed those other people. So you want to sustain them, especially the better they are at figuring out how to feed other people.
Yes. Yes, that's a valuable resource, valuable ability there to wear multiple hats and
Yes.
coordinate, facilitate, all that sort of
Yes.
stuff. Kind of the glue in my mind that kind of holds together these rolling game that we play when you're trying to work from a consulting perspective.
Right.
Okay, the last couple of things. You also have a winery.
Yes.
And I figured, what's the best part about that? What is that your ultimate, like, is that the long-term plan where you can sort of relax into that endeavor, or how do you see, how does that flange up with all the things that you're doing?
I timeshare between the two. So I will be intensely doing SysTech and then get to a point where I can take a breather, and then I'm intensely doing Safford Fields until I take a breather, and then I'm switching back. Long term, I would love to live in Oregon and be full-time on the property, but that long term seems to be getting longer and longer out every year. This has been a really hard year for the wine industry because the tariffs have significantly impacted wine sales internationally. So that's affected domestic wine producers. So it's been a rough year.
Do you make your wine in Oregon and serve it there, sell it there, or do you
Yes.
try to sell it globally?
Well, I will sell it to anybody that will pay. So yes, I have distribution in Korea and Denmark and Singapore and Hong Kong. I also have distribution in Texas and Virginia, New York, New Jersey,
Okay.
California, Oregon, and Washington. But I have a tasting room and with full-time staff in Oregon.
Okay. So is most of that business the local sort of profile of that there in Oregon, or is most of it your actual distribution?
Most of it is direct to consumer in the tasting room.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Now, and then I guess to wrap this up, we're here at the symposium. Any thoughts moving forward where this should go? Anything you want to see as you look at your continued involvement and what you want to leave? You know, what are you hoping for this to be? Do you want it to grow? Do you want to see more of any particular party? What do you think should happen here?
I want to see the conference grow. I want to see it grow sufficient that it is sustainable. We've had the number of registrants are better this year than they've been in the past couple of years, and I think a lot of that has to do with us bringing the conference to Houston, where it's easier to attract people to come over because there's no travel costs. I do miss the campus.
Yeah, I do bad.
I miss how excited our committee members who are from Texas A&M, how excited they were to have that excuse to go out to the campus.
We loved it.
Yes. You know, I would be like, you're a cult, but, you know, roll tide.
Yeah, I mean, there are some huge rooms on in Kyle Field. You know what I mean? I wonder if we ever considered that. There's a big, that's where well, anyway, there's like at the second level, mezzanine level, there's a big room there. Never thought about that. But
No.
that was always a little bit of the challenges, right? Finding the right space. I think, to do it. Okay.
Right. But
Okay.
I want to see the conference grow. We've gone from one track to 2 tracks, so we're offering a lot more papers through the Instrumentation and Automation Symposium. And of course, that makes it more attractive for people to come because there's more topics for you to choose from. Where before we were a one-track conference, and so if you didn't see papers you wanted to see on that day, you wouldn't come. You know, so now we've got more papers, so it's more attractive. They're being local, there's less travel, so I look forward to us having double the number of people next year. That's my goal.
That's
I
what
want
we-
to double the number of people.
Okay.
I want it to be so many people here we're complaining because people are having to stand up.
I agree with you. I agree. That's what we should do. Okay. Well, thank you for taking the time to sit down. I enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time.
You're welcome.
All right.
Bye-bye.